Welcome to the Licensed to Live show, where professionals, doctors, champions, VIPs, attorneys, and those in public office discover strategies that help you restart and gain what is lost when you find yourself accused. If another has doubted your integrity, questioned your credentials, or caused your actions to come under scrutiny, you are in the right place. On the other hand, if you have never felt the knot in the pit of your stomach when legal papers are served, the heartbreak of disappointing your family when the lock clicks shut on handcuffs, or had to appear before a board of review, then be aware, the longer you serve, the more likely you are to find yourself under the microscope of those who judge. Prepare yourself for this uncomfortable possibility. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jarrett Patton.
Welcome to episode 197 of License to Live. I'm your host, Dr. Jarrett Patton, and you have reached the top 5 episode. This is the top 5 episode of 2024, where we recap some of the most popular episodes of License to Live throughout the year 2024. We talk about some serious notes. We talk about some notes that can really help you get to where you want to be. And we may even have some funny parts, just like this outtake from Dr. Bonzo's episode in episode 180, where he tried to take over the show and got me laughing pretty hard. What made you think about writing this book in the first place?
Well, you actually were probably responsible for that. So, you know the answer to that one. So, but I'll take you were kind of the second step. The first step was and I'll get to that in a minute.
And as you could see, he still has me laughing when he tried to turn the tables and on me talking about you know the answer to that question. But we have a lot of fun, and we will get to recapping the top 5 episodes of 2024 right after we finish thanking our sponsors.
The time is now to refresh your career. We help doctors, lawyers, executives, and VIPs refresh and restart. Dr. Jarrett's coaching helps you build confidence, gain more credibility, develop more leadership skills, and gain clarity in your career path. Want to climb the executive ladder or branch out on your own? We'll put your career in overdrive. Visit drjarrett.com and sign up for your free strategy session.
Something smells good. EH3 coffee. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. Nothing better than waking up. EH3 in your cup. Premium organic. EH3 coffee. Nothing better than in the middle of your day. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. EH3 coffee.
Hey guys, this is Janae Noonan, and I'm here with Dr. Jarrett on License to Live. Hit the subscribe, follow the journey. Let's go.
First of all, thank you to all the fire starters listening to this show year in and year out. We have been on the air for over 6 years now. We've produced nearly 200 episodes, and the ideas come from questions that you ask me. It's some common topics that are out there, or just interesting people that we get to interview on this show. And every single year we do the top 5 episode. And let me just tell you how they're picked. They are picked exclusively by the fire starters. That means you, the listener to the episode. At the end of November every year, I take a look, add up all of the year's tallies to all the episodes that were listened, and I pull out the top 5 most listened to episodes on License to Live. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with number 5, episode 177, called Investment Advice. And, as I've said before, I am not a financial advisor. However, on this show, I did give investment advice, and we talk about it right here. So you guys can get a piece of what I'm talking about here. Yeah, I was joking that I didn't sleep in a Holiday Inn last night, and I'm not a financial advisor. And so from this point forward, before anybody starts to get me on that, is I'm not giving any kind of financial advice. I'm giving investment advice. And there's something that I want you to keep your eyes on because the value seems to be getting lower, but the market is starting to drive it up higher. So I am not talking about artificial intelligence. I'm not talking about commodities like oil or gold. And I'm certainly not talking about mutual funds. What I'm talking about is yourself. Right now, in this labor market that we've been trapped in for the past, let's just wrap it all in through the pandemic. Once we emerged from the pandemic, the economy started getting tougher. Interest rates started raising. People had less money. More people are living check to check. And employers feel like they have been in control of the whole labor market because they hang a little dangling carrot over you so that you go to work every day so that in 2 weeks you get that paycheck and you're ready to go. But in this particular instance, many employers are saying, great, people need to work. The economy's bad. We can offer a paycheck. And they may not offer the biggest and brightest of paychecks, but hey, it's something stable. It's something that you can handle. So, might as well jump on the bandwagon. Listen, folks, I don't want you to be fooled in thinking that a lot of people are out there right now and they are at a low value or a inflicted low value. Some of you guys are like, my value is not low. It's never been. But I'm telling you to look at how you have been treated. That time you asked for that vacation and were told no, or that time you asked for a raise and they gave you 52 cents extra. And those are subtle signs that your value is not as high as you think it should be. Now, it's plenty high enough to have a high-level job. I know all you fire starters out here are doing things. You're already at the top of your game. You're able to work hard. You are perhaps an executive or a physician or a lawyer or a businessman, and you are saying, hey, my career too can stand to gain a little bit of satisfaction, maybe a little bit more money, a little bit more fun. All of these things that I've talked to you about in this particular show, we've talked about. You've all at this point heard about my keys to a great life. And in general, L, look at your goals. I, integrate work into life, life into work. F, fun, have more fun. E, expectations, have great expectations. Those are the keys to a great life. And I've talked about those in the past. I'm not going to belabor those right now. So there you go. You must invest in yourself to get to that next level. And so as you're starting off your 2025 and you're thinking about what went wrong in 2024, think about investing in yourself. Now, we had a tie for number 3. So we had 2 episodes that had the exact amount of listens on the day that I chose to tally all of these episodes. So we're going to start with our first number 3 coming from Mailbag Chronicles Volume 2. Now, Mailbag Chronicles is a series that I run periodically based on questions from the fire starters. People hit me up on Twitter. They hit me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, all over the place. They give me calls. They may be stemming from strategy sessions, but they are real questions that people have asked me. And so what I do with the Mailbag Chronicles episode is answer those questions right out there for you. And in this particular one, someone was asking me, how did I start writing books? And I give an example of how I wrote my first License to Live book. When I first wrote my first License to Live book, A Primer to Rebuilding Your Life After Your Career is Shattered, I was kind of in that same boat, Sonny. I sat around and said, what should I do? I have this story I want to tell. And I kept putting it off. A lot of times people put things off when they're scared, when they don't want to do something, when they don't think it's something that's worthy of them. And I was having some of these feelings. I said, I've written book chapters before. I've written articles before. I've done this dozens of times, published columns, all of these things, but I've never written an independent book. And that was too big for me, or so I thought at the time. And it delayed me some. But I vividly remember when I really got going on this book. I was at a conference in Atlanta, and I had finished from the stage earlier than I expected. And I said I could just hang around here, or I could head back to the airport early, see if I catch an early flight or whatever. So I decided to go back to the airport. That's a decision I don't always make, but I had everything with me, including a little bit of inspiration. And I got back to the airport in Atlanta. I couldn't get on an earlier flight back to Philadelphia, so I had to wait out the couple hours there. And I said, you know what? Now is my moment. I'm just going to go sit at the gate, watch planes come in and out, and start typing. And I started writing that book, and I kept writing and I kept writing. Those 2 hours passed. There was a flight delay that caused another hour or two pass, and I'm still writing. I closed up my laptop quick enough only to get on board the plane. As soon as I could open it back up again, I was back to writing. And I had so much of that book done by the time I got to Philadelphia. It was just that inspiration. It was in that moment, and the time was now. So when the time hits you, Sonny, go now. So each one of you may have a different way of approaching writing that book. There's many different ways. I've helped many of my clients pick some different ways to get over that hump. And guess what? It will be no time before you have your own book. So the other tie for number 3, of course, I had to make an episode for all the Swifties out there. Now, I don't know how many fire starters are really Swifties, but I'm not even a Swiftie. But Taylor Swift, wherever she goes, she demands and commands attention. And we had to talk a little bit about Taylor Swift as she is taking over the NFL with her new boyfriend over 2024. And we talk about brand stacking in this episode. This is something for all of you guys to think about, particularly if you're working in hospitals or you're working in an organization now, or you're working even in some other industry. A lot of times you are working under that brand. So, hey, you can get media interviews. You can get all types of great things because you are working for this big, well-established brand. But what happens when that brand goes away? What happens when that brand falls off? You may be left with nothing if you are not looking out for your own personal brand. And that way you get left behind. Nobody's worried about you. Nobody knows who you are because now you don't have the shield of the institution you work for anymore. And so your brand, your personal brand may be virtually worthless, or it may be worthless. You may not even have one because it just hasn't had the attention of the big brand that you work for. But there is nothing wrong with building your brand when you are underneath a bigger brand. That's how you get your name out there. That's how you get some things. And if you are building something yourself, go ahead and do it. Now, of course, you're going to have to look at all the legalese and your intellectual property things. And so before you get happy and start doing stuff and say, Dr. Jarrett, hey, they took my idea because I'm working for, that's what they do with all of these contracts. So you got to look at your intellectual property. You have to look at, the radius in which you're allowed to work and restrictive covenants and all these types of things that go on. Yes, you have to look at that. But if all of that stuff is aside and you don't have to worry about it, then you can take some steps to build your own brand. So first, like we already talked about, get some training, develop some additional skills that are going to serve you as you move forward. Number one. Two, collect assets as you go. So that time you're delivering a grand rounds, you're just delivering a grand rounds, or you're giving a presentation in front of the board, or you're doing one of these things that you typically do in the day-to-day happenings of your own job. And guess what happens then? You are delivering this great presentation, and everybody in the room saw it, but nobody else. So take a moment to take a selfie. Ask one of your friends, hey, can you take a picture of me up on the podium? Because your speaking career oftentimes starts in your regular career, because you're up in front of people. You have to present, you have to talk, you have to do all of these things. So take a few, should we call them marketing assets, along the way. You'll be better served later when you have pictures of you in front of the podium, have pictures of you away speaking at conferences. Do not underestimate the power of your branding. So yeah, Taylor is everywhere, even on License to Live. You should check out the album art on that one too, because I really had to stretch myself to get some Taylor Swift on that for that episode art. And we are coming to episode number 2. This is certainly one of my favorites. You heard a clip at the beginning of the show, but it was all about health equity with Dr. Bonzo Reddick. He released a new book over 2024, and we were talking all things Dr. Bonzo Reddick. He did a lot of things over his career, continues to do some great things over his career. And we take 2 clips from this episode, which is episode 180. And the first clip is a great story that I love to hear him tell. And Dr. Bonzo, one time I went down to his hometown in Savannah, Georgia, and met him, and he gave me a windshield tour of the town, and he gave me a visual tour of this story. When we're talking about washing needles out in dirty creek water, or maybe just retrieving them there and not even worrying about washing them out. This is a story you have to hear, because it really exemplifies the type of physician Dr. Bonzo is.
For the past 7 years or so, my clinical practice outpatient has been with a federally qualified health center. A lot of people know that as an FQHC, but it also has a federal designation as a healthcare for the homeless site, or an HCH site. So we don't just do care for people experiencing homelessness in the clinic building. We actually provide mobile services as well. One of the things that is very common in people who are unhoused or who are experiencing homelessness is difficulty with transportation and access to care. So for the things that we can take care of outside of the building, we go to them. So each week we have a mobile homeless clinic that pretty much rotates around in our catchment area. So if you kind of look at the area we serve, there's about 5 or 6 different locations that are relatively central to those areas. So things like soup kitchens or shelters or places like that where people actually come and we receive care. We have a mobile unit we set up there. So one of the sites that we serve is the one that you went to, which is actually a site underneath a bridge. That homeless camp actually has since then been dispersed, but so it's actually not there anymore. But it was one of our kind of highest impact areas, I guess, in terms of the volume of people we serve, but also in terms of how many issues they were dealing with. So the rates of IV drug use in that community were very, very, very high. Just coincidentally, there was an actual documentary that was done about the opioid epidemic on PBS that actually won an Emmy and actually featured our clinic at that site. But it's because the kind of things you see during the care there. Our medical students that rotate with us, they often were really kind of taken aback. You might see somebody in broad daylight injecting drugs. And so we were kind of used to that. We follow a harm reduction attitude towards things. But the day that really just did it for me was we're walking across and seeing somebody who was trying to crawl into the ditch that kind of leads into that homeless encampment. And it's an area where people use needles and they just kind of chuck them into the ditch. And so we saw a patient kind of climbing down into the ditch, trying to get an old use and syringe and needle so they could inject drugs. And that was a day where it really stuck out to me, where I said, there is probably nothing I can say or do with this person right now to make them not use drugs today. But what I would like to do is make sure that they don't, contract HIV infection or acquire hepatitis C infection or develop bacterial endocarditis from injecting with that dirty needle. So those are kind of the things that we focus on. And I'd heard about harm reduction. We kind of say we do harm reduction with things like pre-exposure prophylaxis for HIV or condom distribution. But needle syringe exchanges really, really became something I was interested in from that day. The students that were with us were really bothered by it. One of our nurses was actually the one who first noticed it and said, please don't do that. Like, I have some clean insulin syringes I can give you. And it turned out that our nurse had actually been giving out some clean syringes for a while. I just didn't know about it. Needle syringe exchange, syringe services programs were legalized, I believe, in 2017 in Georgia. So it's something that people are doing kind of here and there, but it wasn't really organized. So anytime somebody either expresses doubt about harm reduction or syringe services program or needle exchange programs, I often tell that, story.
Yeah, so pretty nasty, but if you're thinking about ways to reduce harm in populations, handing out some clean needles can really do that. And Dr. Bonzo is doing that. But we mainly were talking about his new book, which is a #1 bestseller called Health Equity, a guide for clinicians and medical educators. And I had to ask him, why did he want to write this book? And tongue in cheek, he got back at me a little bit with his response, but he had a real reason and why he wrote this book. And I want you to check it out. What made you think about writing this book in the first place?
Well, you actually were partly responsible for that. So, you know the answer to that one. So, but I'll take you were kind of the second step. The first step was and I'll get to that in a minute, but the first step was actually me sharing that message. So the funny thing is actually parallels a lot of what we're seeing in society right now. So there's this, if you just Google, CNN or MSNBC or Fox News and type in DEI, you'll get all these articles about this DEI controversy, about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is it divisive and blah, blah, blah. And when I first started talking about these topics, like I mentioned to you, that I was so excited and wanted to share them with people, I did get pushback from a lot of folks in my own institution. And there were people who said, I feel like you're trying to make us feel bad, or you're trying to make me say I'm a racist or that I'm sexist or that I'm homophobic or whatever. That's not true. And if we would just stop talking about racism, it would go away. Those are the kind of messages I heard. And sometimes people were quite angry. I mentioned this, I think, in chapter 4 of my book about one of the specific incidences that happened. And there were some changes we were trying to make to the curriculum where we were able to teach these concepts to our students. And that process got delayed by a couple years, actually, because there was so much conflict when we were talking about these things.
Wow.
So instead of giving up, though, what I did was just kind of retool the message, kind of see what things worked, what kind of things didn't work, what kind of messages that people receive or laugh at, and kind of take the sting away from these controversial or sensitive topics. And I'm not perfect, but I think I did kind of get closer to perfecting the message. And what I found was that sort of a blend of kind of almost like humor and just a really light atmosphere to start out the talk really surprised people. So it was like, oh, he's here to talk about racism in medicine. Oh my gosh. And I lead it with a joke, and where I would often poke fun at myself, because one of the concepts of health inequities is that not that there's one specific group of people that do everything, but that we all contribute to a system that leads to these inequities. So each of us on any given day have the opportunity to create these inequities, even for the members that we're a group of, any groups that we're a part of, excuse me. So if you're a gay man, there's a chance that you may do certain things that actually contribute to systemic inequities against gay men, or that you might stereotype another gay man. Same thing for me as a black male. I might stereotype a black male sometimes. There's actually a comment in the book about a time I did that. So I think that's in chapter 3. So what I found was the more I did that, the more it would take people off guard. They were like, oh, I thought he was here to preach at us and wave his finger. He's poking fun at himself right now. But by poking fun at myself, it would show, look how I made this mistake. You all make this mistake as well. Let me show you what impact it has on people's health.
And now, the moment that you've all been waiting for. Hey, this is Dr. Jarrett Patton. Do you need more positivity in your life? No matter what part of your life you want to transform, positive affirmations can help you achieve your goals. But sometimes making permanent changes can be difficult. Designed with you in mind, License to Live, daily affirmations to rebuild your life will inspire and equip you to become the best version of yourself. License to Live. Daily affirmations to rebuild your life will set you on the path to changing your mindset, beliefs, speech, and ultimately your actions. You can change your life now by getting your copy at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your finer book retails, or licensed2live.com. That's licensed2live.com. The most popular episode from all the fire starters in all of 2024. And I'm going to come back with that episode right after we finish thanking our sponsor. The most popular episode of License to Live in the calendar year 2024 goes back to a very old episode that barely missed the cut for the 2023 top 5, but we had to add it in the 2024 top 5. Episode 176, we were talking about healthcare strikes, and throughout the year last year, people were getting fed up, whether they're getting burnt out, whether they're being mistreated in the workplace, whether they just wanted to do something different with their life. And some people at Kaiser took a different approach. And, you know, sometimes we hear about nurses going on strike and different healthcare workers going on strike, but even the physicians were going on strike in this strike. And so we talked a little bit about your worth and understanding your worth, finding your worth before all of these other things happen and you just feel like you have to quit or you have to go on strike to make a point. So take these tips out of episode 176, healthcare strikes. Well, first, I'll talk to all the employees that are in an uproar. I mean, yes, times are definitely hard. The inflation, the Fed interest rate hikes, all of these things are coming to a horrible head, hopefully, that maybe we can get beyond. But this is very tight. It's tight living for a lot of us out there. And people don't understand their overall value to the organization. And sometimes those things are taken for granted on the organizational side, because let's face it, if we were in a society in which everything were free, or we could just, you know, trade something for a handshake, a lot of people probably would not be doing what they're doing right now. But the finances of this entire healthcare industry, and really it's outside of healthcare, but we'll just focus on healthcare because that's largely what we talk about here. But in this healthcare environment, people have to live in cars, people living check to check. There's a certain level of stress. And then when you have to add on the day-to-day work of stress, it becomes extremely challenging. So for all of you guys working hard, very stressed, hey, know your worth. I mean, there could be the perfect job for you just around the corner. You just have to take some time looking. Take some time to take care of yourself and think about when was the last time you went on a vacation or even a staycation. Take some time and ground yourself. Give yourself some time to heal and then even take the time to think about what that future could be. And finally, you know, I'm going to talk about goodwill and spreading cheer to others. Just practice simple acts of kindness every day. And those simple acts of kindness spread and multiply. And it truly makes the world a better place. Fire starters, I can't tell you how much fun I have delivering this podcast, whether it's just me and the microphone and you guys in the room with me, or I'm interviewing some guests. And I can't thank you enough for continuing to listen, telling your friends about the show, and watching the show grow in its popularity, not only in the U.S., but across the world. It is a true blessing, and it's something that I never had anticipated for myself, but it's something that came back to me, and I love doing it, and we're going to have lots more episodes in 2025. And if you ever have an idea or maybe think that you should be a guest on the show, reach out to me. Hit me up on social media at Dr. Jarrett. Spell out the word doctor, J-A, 2 R's, E, 1 T. And we will see you next time.
No matter how disheartening the moment of accusation sounds, how deep the pain of immobilization stabs, or how bleak your future looks, no one can take away your license to live. Keep Dr. Jarrett's expertise handy and unlock your future. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or another podcast player and subscribe right now to Licensed to Live. See you next time.